All eyes on the kingdom. Men in the kingdom. All eyes on the kingdom.
Greetings, 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 and welcome. I am Joe Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of Men in the Kingdom, and I am so grateful to have my business acquisition manager, Kevin Vaughn, in tow. Welcome. Our first guest, wow, I don't even sometimes know how to introduce this guy because he means so much to me. We attended the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and we were, at that time, they called them grapplers. But we were wrestling buddies and wrestling teammates. And what I'd like to do is just introduce you guys to Daniel Oliverius, but he's known as Danny O. Danny, how are you today?
I'm great, Joe. Good to see you in live and in person and talk to you and reminisce about some good old days.
Well, great, great. Well, Danny, this is all about you today. You know, we've got just a perfect setting for you just to tell us a little bit about whom you are, because back in the day we were grapplers, wrestlers, and things like that. But life kind of gives us a lot of different curves, and we have to do things that put money in our pocket in order for us to survive this crazy, crazy world. Tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the things that you're currently doing now.
Currently, I am a consultant. I'm basically retired, but I still have projects going on. I've got the Centenary United Methodist Church in Beatrice, Nebraska. I just moved back up to Omaha. I got married this last year, and to my girlfriend from the 1980s, and we had a wonderful celebration with family, friends. A lot of our UNO teammates were there, and a lot of fun. And married a wonderful woman. And very happy to be back in the metro. My roots are here, but I've got two projects going on, and one has been designated, and they're right across the street from each other in the little town of Beatrice. One's been designated as a National Historic Landmark. We brought out contractors from Chicago who did all the stone work. We had to basically redo the bell tower that's 90 feet in the air, and then fix some structural issues that we found with the building. It's over 100 years old, so a nice feather in the cap. And in the meantime, while that project was going on, the town got hit by softball-sized hail, and the Catholic Church across the street, which I was a member of, they had a Ludovici tile roof and all kinds of copper, and they got a school there, and they own several houses on the block. They own the whole block, and so a lot of storm damage, and Ludovici is the finest tile roof products in the world, and it's not cheap. So I had put in a lot of time negotiating with the insurance company and got a proper settlement. Both projects are well over $1 million. So it's something I enjoy, and kind of started out as a volunteer thing, giving back, and kind of opened up a new avenue for me to create business because a lot of parishioners sit on other boards and so word of mouth. And I try to stay low key because I don't want to work too hard. I'm retired, so to speak, semi-retired, but I have a lot of interests and hobbies.
So Danny, my question to you, this when you put together and assisted with this project, did some of the other pastors solicit your assistance in any way, shape, or form?
Well, again, word of mouth. A good friend of mine, and a connection through wrestling. I coached his son, and he was a member of the Centenary United Methodist Church, and what he was dealing with over there, he was kind of looking after the church as far as maintaining the integrity of the building, and they had a lot of roof leaks, and so every time it rained, I was down there on my time initially, and then they hired me as a consultant. I brought in engineers, architects, and everything, but the connection initially was personal, and the gentleman who was overseeing the finances and everything, that the decision maker, he was a former superintendent of schools. In a past life, I spent 14 years as an English teacher and a head wrestling coach, both in the Omaha metro area, in the metro conference, and then in the town of Beatrice. Um,
So
so,
what you know what I hear, Danny? I hear that your consulting business was very strong. It took you out of retirement, and it was able to kind of help fund a little bit of your life. But one of your biggest passion was, I'm sure, and you alluded to it earlier when you said something about wrestling and helping one of your friend's son, and then being a teacher. So what I hear is education is at the forefront of everything that you do. Teaching, whether you're teaching in a classroom or you're teaching on the mat, there's fundamentals that have to be taught: teamwork, working together collectively. And we all understand that wrestling is just you and that other individual out there. But there's so many life principles that go into wrestling and being a teacher. Can you talk a little bit about that?
well, and you know this well yourself: work ethic, uh, showing up on time, uh, the principles that successful adults uh, use to further their careers. All those things come into play, and those are lessons learned through wrestling, and that's why I've stayed. I never stopped coaching, even when I went into the private sector after 14 years. But so many of my connections, if I need a plumber, an electrician, I'm calling my former wrestlers. They're all in the trade. A lot of them are in the trades, and some are engineers, and that's my network. That's the core of my network, and of course, I met other people while doing business. But after 14 years of teaching, and God bless teachers, we don't pay them enough. So uh, during the summer, it was pretty normal for teachers to go out and have other jobs, and I was doing everything. I'm a pretty good carpenter, so building decks, docks, and painting houses, you name it. I was doing it, whatever, to make ends meet. And so I had that background, and uh, it was kind of an easy transition for me when I did decide to leave teaching. And again, using my network. Um, my first commercial construction job, I walked right into as a manager, and these guys are speaking a whole nother language that I don't understand.
I'll
But
bet.
you keep your mouth shut, you listen, you ask questions. If you're smart, you can adapt, and So I literally at 38, I made a transition in my life that that I'm grateful because it was a new challenge, and I still continued to coach, and a lot of my former wrestlers went on to be head coaches. I worked with them. I've got ties to USA Wrestling. I was while I was in Omaha in the Metro, my first teaching job. I was the first Eastern director for USA Wrestling in Nebraska, and got all the clubs in town on board with that, and it's been a huge success. Nebraska is doing very well in youth wrestling and high school wrestling, and we've got kids wrestling in the Big Ten and everywhere. Personally, uh, I've I've uh, I've coached some incredible individuals. Uh, Took a team over to Germany back in 1987. Made friends the with um, some of the German folks over there in the Black Forest area, and they're just like us. You know, they're mid. I know Joe's originally a Midwesterner, even though he's in Atlanta now, but he hasn't forgotten his roots. I've seen
Not at
pictures
all.
of him and his family. You know, we're the same that way. You know, I've got my family, and um, but those connections that I made overseas, we hosted two teams back here while I was still head coach, and those were lifetime connections, and open up a whole new culture. I had a little bit of German, a couple of years of German in high school, and I never used it. And here, all of a sudden, I was a team leader on a Nebraska All-Star team over in Germany. So I was forced to speak German and represent the team and translate, and that was a wonderful experience. And uh, like I said, I just got married this past year in September, and we took our honeymoon in Germany. And the reason uh, I never had children, and my wife Kate uh, has a son named Sam. So uh, in getting married, I was blessed with a stepson for to, to live out that dream of being a father figure, which I've kind of been all along as a coach, really. But Kansas City was playing Miami in Frankfurt, Germany. And he was the one that brought it up first. And I said, I speak German, and I've got friends over there we could stay with. And so he's a huge Miami Dolphins fan. And so we just had the best time. We saw Kansas City and Miami play in Frankfurt, and then we went down. We put him back on the plane because it was after all our honeymoon, and you don't normally take your stepson along on your honeymoon. So we went to see our friends down in an area of the Black Forest, and it's beautiful there, and the history is so incredible. But more importantly, the bonds that we have internationally. You know, it's
Right.
it's a
But Danny,
secret club.
Danny, when you saw the Kansas City, Mahomes was still the quarterback, right? I
Oh
mean, he
yeah,
was.
oh yeah,
So
oh
you
yeah.
got a chance to see.
Kelsey was. We were watching Kelsey warm up an hour before the game. It was cool. And Mahomes is a great story. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you another name, Rayola. Dylan Rayola is now a freshman quarterback at the University of Nebraska, and he's spending time right now training with Mahomes post spring football. So watch out for this young man. He is going to be. I mean, he was the number one quarterback in the 2024 class, and he's going to be another Mahomes before he's done.
There you go.
He's
There you go. Well, Danny, we got. I don't want to shut my business acquisition manager out, Kevin. I also want to give him an opportunity to just ask a couple questions because for me, I see three, maybe four segments that I want to touch bases with you on, but I'm going to allow Kevin, if he so wants, to make a comment one way or another.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. Danny, oh, welcome, man. We're so proud and
Thank you,
excited
Kevin.
for you. So glad you know Joe and glad you guys are still connected together. Hey, Danny, I wanted to ask you a question about who inspired you growing up. I mean, what put you into the realm of where you're at, where you're at today, but who helped you and kind of guide you a little bit to where you're at today?
Well, as for, all of us, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Everybody, there are people that influence our lives. Uh, the guy who started me in wrestling, uh, Jim Holacek, RIP, uh, uh, won state championship very early on in my hometown of Albion, Nebraska, and then went on to Lincoln East in Nebraska to be the head coach there and won a state title there. But our coaches learned wrestling from books because it just wasn't, we didn't really have, although the wrestling state tournament's been around since 1928 in Nebraska. Pretty much it was just metro schools, and in the 60s it kind of exploded. But Jim Holacek went on to be the national AAU director. But Joe will probably remember at the beginning of the season every year in college, we went to the Great Plains tournament, which was sponsored by the AAU, they were transitioning between the AAU to USA Wrestling, and Jim was the national director. So, you know, I and he was an English teacher, by the way. So it was no accident that I ended up teaching English. Although my father was an attorney, and when Joe knew me, he left a year before I graduated. My plans were to go to law school, and I'd been accepted at Creighton and University of Nebraska and Michigan University law schools, but I couldn't give up. It was just my calling that God spoke to me and said, "You're not done with this journey yet,
Yeah.
and with wrestling." And so, and then I had good high school coaches, but I went to watch the University of Nebraska Omaha because they were a big deal. They actually won the first national title in any sport
Wow.
in 1969 in for the Nebraska system,
Mhm.
and the head coach was Don Benning, and I first
Yeah, I
saw them
remember.
in
I
wrestling.
remember Don.
And that's a story in and of itself. Don Benning uh, went on to become the assistant superintendent of schools for Omaha Public Schools, and took over at a time when busing was an issue, and the integration of the Omaha Public School systems, for equal opportunity for minorities. And Don was a great man, and Don uh, is uh, I don't think a lot of people know this. That Don was the first black head coach of a predominantly white university in any sport in the nation. And
Wow.
back in his day, he had, and it was mostly local guys, Omaha Metro guys, but
Yeah.
they were beating teams like Iowa, uh, you know, uh, that's been a program that's been dominant in wrestling,
Yeah.
and wrestling all over the country. And I've talked to Joe about this, but I've talked to the boys from back then, uh, and when they would cross the Mason-Dixon line, because they were wrestling all over the country,
Mhm.
you know, uh, 10 guys on the team, 5 guys were black, 4 guys were white, and Paul Martinez was a Hispanic. But the joke was that the white guys talked him into be calling him his name Martinez, so that they they would have 50-50 on the team. But Don was immersed in all of that, and the whole business about Jim Crow in the South, and the lunchrooms,
Yeah.
being denied stay at hotels and things like that. That was all very real. So he grew up in that atmosphere,
Yeah.
and what a leader and what an impact he has had on our sport, and you know, those are one of those giants that I talk about. I knew Don, and when I started coaching in Omaha, I had meetings with him, you know, and
Yeah.
so what a gift. And so and then of course my senior year in college, Mike Denny was the coach at UNO. It was his first season, so we broke him in right. But he went on. He just retired. He went on to be a Hall of Fame coach. So when I say that I had the good fortune of standing on the shoulders of giants
Yeah.
in every bit of that, and then in the practice room back in my hometown, there was a state champion the weight below me. There was a state champion the weight above me. I was a state champion. I was just surrounded by good people. Same thing in
Yeah.
college, surrounded by national champions.
Yeah.
And a plug for my hometown of Albion. When I was in high school, we had won 68 duels in a row without a loss. So I come from a very storied program,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
so we are only as good as the people we surround each other with.
That is correct, and I think it's important, Danny, that as you talk, you're bringing these giants up, because no matter how good we were in college, or those folks helped us focus on life after college,
Absolutely.
and those principles we live with them today. And people say, "Hey, Joe, why are you doing this or why are you doing that?" It's because I had people that were surrounded me, and when I started naming individuals, I just kept, and I said, I have to stop, because there were so many people that were influential in what I did. And as I listened to you're naming so many, and there's so many more that are still in your life. Now, Benning, I remember him distinctly. I don't even know now, has he transitioned or is he still with us?
No, it's been about 5, 6 years ago that he passed on. I've been trying to rattle the cages. You know, we've got all these bronze statues down at the University of Nebraska with Tom Osborne and some great players around the stadium there. I think there needs to be a bronze statue for Don Benning on the, even though they've dropped the wrestling program and football program at UNO. I think there needs to be a bronze statue right in front of the Helen and Lee Stapp Fieldhouse, because he was a pioneer,
Yes.
and just a great man. When I had a meeting with him once, I had a heavyweight wrestler. His name was Mike Halleck. Mike has passed on this past year, and that's a side story. But uh, Mike had to pick up. He failed a class at school. He had to pick up summer class. Well, he was kind of ornery, but he was a good boy and down deep. But boys will be boys, and so during a break at summer school, he's out lighting off firecrackers, and he
Uh-oh.
gets tossed out of summer school. He needed those hours to be eligible the next semester at school. So I thought I'll go in and talk to Don, and smooth this over. Best lesson I ever learned as a coach was in that moment with Don Benning. And Benning said, "You're fighting a battle for a young man who needs to own up to his behavior,
Right.
and you are enabling him, and you cannot do this." And that was a very valuable lesson for me as a young educator, from Don himself, that you can't condone and reinforce that, because it's gonna come back to bite not only you as a teacher or a coach, but you're not helping the young person. So
Exactly.
we
I
let
totally
Mike
agree.
stand on his own, and Mike uh, went on to win a state title twice, finalist in Nebraska, and went on to a career in the WWE,
Oh, okay.
WWF back then, um,
So
and
he took that aggressive style and ornery attitude and found himself in the acting business.
exactly. One of the guys that he helped train is Dwayne Rock Johnson,
Wow.
and which was pretty cool, and of course me at the time weighing 140 pounds dripping wet, but I had great technique. I was the only guy that could wrestle him. He was 285 as an eighth grader,
Geez.
6'1", 33-inch thigh, and he wasn't fat. He was just rock solid, and but taught him the body lock, and which Joe knows, because Joe used to lock up with guys and plant them so hard on the mat that they'd come up with the out of bounds stripe across their back. Joe was not only a great wrestler, he was a great athlete. But
I
yeah,
and I thank you for that. I oftentimes think that I probably should have played football or basketball, because I remember the coach at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, after I finished wrestling, and I played against Free Force and some of those guys that were there, and I killed them. I like in an intramural,
oh,
I couldn't stop hitting the shot, and he asked me, he said, "You want to take that fifth year and come out and play for us?" And if I knew what I knew now, I probably would have. I just didn't. I mean, I was afraid of, uh, you get afraid of success. You also get afraid of failure. And I thought, I knew I was a good athlete, but I remember those guys distinctly. And I sometimes wish that I would have done that. But Dan, thank you for the accolades on being a good athlete. I thought our whole team was built around just solid athletes, but more importantly, we were better men. We appreciated one another greatly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot a little bit,
and by
and
the way, let
because
me interject this. You could have made the NFL. There were a couple of guys that never even played college football. Stephen Neal being one, and three-time Division II and Division I champ Carlton Hasselrig never played collegiate football. Went straight to the NFL. Wrestling and football. I mean, you're rapping when you tackle. I mean, you're getting your job is to get a guy to the ground, which is what wrestling is. So
right, right,
your path could have taken a different one, but look where you're at now and the impact you're having on lives.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
and that's what it's all about.
I'm just so excited that we come from a good stock. All of us come from good stock, and what makes a good stock is the fact that we never forgot each other, and we hunted, we found ways to reconnect. But then I have to say that in what you're doing, and I'm not going to stay with the script too much, because I just think we got into areas where I'm starting to reminisce. I'm starting to feel like I'm 18, 19, 20 years of age, and I know that these bones don't allow me to do that. But my question is, how have things changed since we were where we were? And keep in mind, you brought up 2 points that really saddens my heart. The football team is no longer the Mavericks. Football team is no longer. I remember Sandy Buddha being the coach there, and then
Mhm.
Mike Palmisano with the wrestling team. And can you kind of give me just a general idea, what was the demise of those two programs, which are very significant in most schools?
Uh, and I've researched this, and I've had interviews with all the major players and the alumni, and it came down to money. To a certain degree, it came down to politics, but it was brewing for a long time. Even back when I first started at UNO in '75, there was a member of the Board of Regents from Scottsbluff who got in his mind that the UNO football program was pulling away from uh, athletes away from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and with few exceptions, there weren't too many guys at UNO who could have played at the same level at the University of Nebraska. Kirby Monahan, you would have been exceptions. Both of you could have played at UNL very, very easily, but we were no threat. But they got this in their mind, and um, and I won't mention the former AD at the University of Nebraska,
I know who you're talking
Omaha,
about. You know, yeah,
nor
you don't
the
have to mention his
nor the
name. I know him
recent
well.
former athletic director at the University of Nebraska, but he basically was just a puppet anyway, and um, he was just the messenger, so to speak, and but did not go about it in a good way. And the way he left the University of Nebraska and went to Texas A&M, uh, same story that he spoke from behind the shadows, and he was about bettering his career. And if you follow the man going back to his ESPN days, he's had an interesting career. People either love him or hate him, and he did not do his reputation well for what he did at UNO. The wrestling community in Nebraska is never forgotten, and nor the football brothers. And people kind of open up their eyes after uh, him leaving Nebraska um, under interesting circumstances, an ongoing lawsuit for uh, a um, a female athlete being groomed in the women's program, and he's personally named in that suit. So you can go to another school, but your past is going to follow you.
Always follow
You
you.
and
Always
in
follow you.
life you you have to uh, you have to you have to what do I want to say? You have to meet your own standards. Talk is one thing. You have to live a Christian life.
Well,
So
that whole dilemma is a sad story, and unfortunately, I know it well. You and I've talked about it in detail, and it's sad because we sell ourselves out, and sometimes the end product is not what we thought we were getting when we asked for the price. I'm going to shift gears because that's a very sad narrative for me, and when I think about
never do a deal with the devil.
yeah,
and
yeah,
and and as Yogi Berra once said, it ain't over till it's over.
right.
Uh, uh, Before it's all said and done, uh, I really believe that someday the program is gonna come back.
Come back.
That so
Well, you're
keep your
looking at
fingers crossed.
it's really based upon dollars and cents. The University of Nebraska Omaha has a pretty good academic setup where that's where the money is going. But there's something when you look in at the Big East, the Big Ten, the old OU and Nebraska rivalries and so forth, and see how the stadiums are just jam packed with people and concessions and all that way to make money for the universities. Now they got the NIL where they're paying, individuals. I have always been a fan of that, but I thought that the NIL, and I know we're jumping way off the subject, but I thought the NIL jumped way too high in terms of giving monies. They should have had, and just like any sport, the quarterback gets the lion's share of the money. Okay, so they should have had a line item for quarterback. They should have had a line item for running backs, and just worked its way down. And I think that when you're giving people millions of dollars before they've proven themselves, that's a recipe for a disaster. And that's kind of what I see with the NIL right now. It's a recipe for disaster. It's not going to get any better. At some point in time, some of these guys who rot on the bench that are making $2 million, they have no incentive to play. With us wrestlers, we knew that we had 2 or 3 guys on our team that we had to beat in order to make the team, right?
Right.
You had 132, 145, whichever weight class that you were wrestling in, you knew you had. In your case, you generally had 3 or 4 guys in that you had to wrestle in order just to make it to the next meet that was on Friday or Saturday. Or when we traveled, sometimes we took an extra guy in your weight class to go because you did several different things over the weekend. So I mean, there's no incentive in the NIL. I think and I can't give a number what I think that the quarterback, running back, lineman should get, but this $2 million for someone that's never played it down, it's hard for me to separate. I don't know if you remember, we had Chambers. I think his name was Chambers. Was one of
Ernie
the
Chambers.
yeah. I think he's good. He's probably deceased too now, right?
No, no, no. The current the current um, senator is Terrell McKinley um, from that district, and uh, they and Ernie ran again. There's term limits in Nebraska, so he had to sit out for a while. Well, he ran again, and he and Terrell are neck and neck, and so
Nice.
the top two of of the uh, of the election were Terrell and Ernie. Ernie is, gosh, I don't know how he's definitely in his 80s, but he's running again, and he may very well win. So,
Well,
and
I sat with him. I sat with him, and we had a long conversation about athletes getting paid. And that's the reason why I brought up the NIL, because he told me, he says, you guys are bringing in loads of money to the university. He says, half of you guys have inferior sleeping quarters, not eating well at all. He said, I'm not for you guys becoming rich for the university, but I said, the stipends that you guys get, he says, you guys should get triple that. He said, you should be able to stay in a decent place. I said, you don't have to live in a mansion. He said, but you should be able to stay in a decent place and have affordable transportation and at least be able to eat properly. He said, you guys are just eat pizza at Sortino's, going to Sortino's, eating pizza, getting food that's not really good for your body. He said, but your body has to be in peak condition. How can it be in peak condition when you're starving?
yeah,
And so he had some points. He never gave a dollar figure, but he did, in fact, say, Danny, that we needed to be paid. And that's what been 40 years ago. And the
yeah,
NIL's been
yeah.
in
He was saying it back in the day,
yeah,
back
yeah.
in the early 70s, and uh, that athletes, university athletes, should be paid. And quite frankly, there's a lot of merit to that. And he's right. But now it's the Wild West, and it's all out of control, and uh, which invites in the good folks in Vegas, gambling, and so there's cheating going on. There's no doubt about it. There's cheating going on. So, money talks. So I hope. I don't know if it's going to be the NCAA, but I hope somebody gets control over that. But
But they're going to
uh,
have to, Danny. They're going to have to do that sooner or later.
there's got
My
to be
my my
equity.
next my next question that I know you have to help me with. There are a lot of Danny O's running around, not just in Nebraska, but all over the country. What type of tips would you give them that could help them better themselves, help them better whomever they're trying to help? And I need you to take your time on this one. What tips would you give someone who's interested in doing what you do?
Invest in the next generation. Um, that's our true legacy. What we leave behind. And I'm going to tell you what, it's a difficult world now. The technology is a game changer. Uh, Phones, kids don't play outside like they used to.
Not at all.
Everything's too easy. The days of us walking to school uphill both ways in snow. You, you know, uh, we were raised in a different time, and but we have to pass on those values uh, of work ethic and do the right thing, and make good choices. Have a goal, and don't just make it a dream that you talk about, but write it down. That's what I would want to pass on to others. Is a dream is just a dream, but a goal is something you write down and you have a plan. How am I going to get there? And there's going to be ups and downs and good days and bad days. Don't lose your focus. you know Keep your eye on the prize. And I don't care if that's your personal life, your family, your job. you know all those things really other than family are secondary anyway. What we carry forward is our legacy, our friendships, the young people that we help steer, or at least try to lead by example, and involve those young people. Leaders are not born, leaders are created. You know, and I carried this over into business too. When I was a project manager, you know, I involved from the guy who had the least responsibility to the top. I involved them all because you don't want to make decisions that affect people's lives without their input. And young people are smart. You know, you don't want to take them for granted. They can figure it out. Uh, you know, give them a chance.
But
But
they need the grooming that you're
they
talking
do.
about. You
There's so
made
many
a
distractions.
you made a comment, and I use this all the time, that I can't just walk into something. I have to plan it if I'm looking for a level of success. And sometimes our young people just walk in and then expect to have a different result, a successful result, without putting some kind of intuitiveness to it. And if you can't do that, Danny, if you can't put a plan together, you're already unsuccessful. I do give them the benefit of the doubt for trying, but we used to be the word of mouth. We could say whatever that we had to say, word of mouth. Now that doesn't work as much. You know, you have to have at least 3 to 4 steps that you take in order to get the results that you want. And I thank you for that, Danny, because there's so many things that you said in this conversation. As I mentioned to you earlier, I want to keep it real. I want to keep it light, because we sometimes get caught up. You made a comment earlier about $1.50 word, because it was elongated
Two
word
dollar
and
and
things like.
57 cent word. I'm a loquacious. I'm a loquacious individual, and all that means is I talk too much. But
No,
that's
no,
just
it's good. See, it doesn't hurt to talk too much when you have a worthy listener. Because I was telling someone they were doing what you just said and using the word loquacious, and they were just going, and then they just stopped. They said, "Did you hear anything that I said?" I said, "Unfortunately, yes, because you only mentioned it 5 times in the conversation." I said, "It was by self-defense that I heard everything." But the things that I heard today, Danny, was so positive. And if you'll notice, I kind of sit back and listen, but I'm also have to be respectful to Kevin, because there's things that he wants to share as well. And so I'm going to pivot over to him and let him share any knowledge that he wants to, and any questions he might have.
Oh, real quickly, Danny, that was powerful. You laid some foundation that we all need to hear. And I hope that, not hope, there'll be a lot of people that will hear this later on as well. So thank you so much for that, Joe. Just for time's sake, I want to turn it back over to you, Joe. But Danny, that was powerful. You laid the foundation for our young people and next generation, and even the adults. Thank you so much.
thank you,
So
Kevin. My
as
pleasure.
we get close to the ending, in closing, Danny, and man, you shared a lot. There were 5 things that I gleaned from it, and I think I've mentioned those over time. In closing, what additional nuggets would you like to share with us? And this, you got plenty of time. What nuggets would you like to share with us?
Don't um, don't wait till tomorrow to tell the people who are most meaningful in your life that you love them. None of us is guaranteed tomorrow. Tomorrow is Sunday, and as usual, I'll be in church, but I'm attending a celebration of life later in the afternoon, and it's of another heavyweight wrestler for me. So this is 2 of the young men that I coached passed within the last 8 months, and both champion wrestlers. And
Mm.
and um, I I just wished one of them a happy heavenly birthday on Facebook for his family. But I said, I'm sending another one your way. And that's Sean Ray. And Sean was also a great wrestler. They both learned the body lock from the same source. And so I said, you guys are allowed to uh, talk wrestling, talk, but no matches, because that's, they could each hurt each other badly, but you know what a tough thing. These are guys in their early to mid 50s, leaving us way too young. And in Mike Halleck's case, it was CTE. That's a whole nother topic. But too many concussions from the WWF. and and
Hmm.
and and Sean Ray went into hospital. They diagnosed him with stage 4 lymphoma. He uh, was one of those, stand up tough guys that, you don't go old school. You don't go to the hospital or see a doctor for anything. He got there too late. He was gone within a week. So, it's okay to reach out. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to lean on each other. Take care of yourself. Yeah, and take care of your loved ones, because we are not promised tomorrow. And I'm saddened by the loss of these two guys, because they weren't just my athletes; they were my friends, and they had a huge impact on my life, as I'm sure I did them. But tell those that, and by the way, Joe, I love you, brother, and tell the people that are close to you as often as you can. Hug them, you know, because you never know what the next day brings.
That's so true, Danny. I'm going through something right now, and I'll have to talk to you about it offline. But it is. I remember when I was 20, 21 years of age, I had never said to my mom, "I love you." When I went to college, I heard a number of people on phones talking to their parents, and they said, "I love you." And it was a very, very awkward thing to hear that, because I thought I'd never said it. So that's one of the things I take from college, is that when I came back home from visit, and actually it was when I was a freshman and sophomore season, I heard it. And when I came home, I think my mom was shocked, because I not only said I love you to her, but I took my siblings and I hugged them and said, "I love you." And from this point forward, we all, before we get off the phone, "I love you." And it's unconditional. And
Absolutely.
and so I just want to, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's, like I said, I'm going through some stuff right now, and we'll talk about this offline. But it is so important to give back. We all we all have our hands out, whether we know it or not, instead of saying, "Look, how can I help you?" When I began in the networking world and began to say, "I want to listen to more about you," because everybody's best subject is them. If you stop and ask them, "Hey, what's going on?" and then you put the focus back on them, man, they'll be like a water faucet that you have to actually turn off, because they'll just keep talking. But with that being
And,
said, we're
and,
going to have
and
to let
that's the
ourselves.
secret to successful sales. Get people to talk about themselves, because everybody wants to talk about themselves.
Absolutely. And with that being said, Danny, we want to say thank you on behalf of Men in the Kingdom and in our interviews. Thank you so much. And how can our audience find you without you giving them a direct phone number? Is that something you would like the audience to know a little bit more about you? Are you social or?
I'm on Facebook. Uh, uh, I don't ever get on Instagram, but I have an account there. Just to, I've got my circle of a lot of former students, a lot of former athletes. I enjoy seeing pictures of their families, and to a man, they are all solid citizens, and that I take great pride in. But their families probably had more to do with that than anything. But I hope I gave them a little extra push. But um, I'm out there. My email, if anybody ever wants to email me, is just my first name Dan dot my last name Oliverius, and I'm on Gmail. But
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, and don't hesitate, Danny, to look us up on meninthekingdom.org and subscribe to our channel so you can watch some of the crazy movies that I produce. At any rate, we want to just, on behalf of Men in the Kingdom, we want to say thank you so much for allowing us to speak with you and take time out of your precious morning.
God bless you, Joe. God bless you, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Danny.
I love Atlanta, beautiful city, and hope that maybe be in town sometimes in the near future and look you up.
Come see us. Come see us. We're gonna let Kevin close it out. Just stand by with you, Danny.
Yes, sir.
All eyes on the kingdom. Men in the kingdom.